Hey guys, this is Squidyvon and welcome back to .GameTV. In this video, we'll be continuing my full breakdown of the Starfield gameplay shown at Microsoft's Xbox June showcase, with part 3 covering the cities and factions shown in the game thus far. Make sure to check out parts 1 and 2 of my breakdown analyzing the Crete mission playthrough and the game's main storyline. Also, if you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Starfield content, which is only going to get better and better as we move closer to 2023 and the game's release. So let's start with what will be the largest city Bethesda has ever built, New Atlantis. New Atlantis is a city on the planet Jemison, a name no doubt honoring Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space. Jemison is a planet of the Alpha Centauri system, Earth's closest neighbor. On landing in the city, we can see at least 2 large docking platforms in what appears to be the front entrance of the city. You can see things like fuel canisters and maintenance workers around each of the docking stations, so it's likely that New Atlantis will be a place you can repair and refuel your ship upon landing. We can also see in the background the surroundings are relatively bare, with large valleys giving way to distant mountains. In fact, New Atlantis itself seems to be built into a mountain, which was also shown in the previously released concept art. There are some huge structures in the city which look incredibly impressive, but I've got to nitpick a little here and say that the trees look absolutely terrible at the moment. I think I know what they were going for, and they just haven't nailed it, unfortunately. It's not that the other trees in Starfield look bad too, it's just these ones in New Atlantis. I really hope they go back to the drawing board here, or that these are very low resolution stand-in models or something. Okay, so back to the city, we can see New Atlantis is separated into more an arrival arboretum area and then a more densely packed group of buildings and skyscrapers. If we can go into all of those buildings and all of their floors, this is going to be a huge amount of playable space to explore. And while there seems to be plenty of space, just about every inch of it appears packed with NPCs we can interact with, so there is definitely going to be a lot to do here. We can see at the main entrance there are large signs welcoming us to the city, but also signs directing us to different locations. You can see signs for launch pads A and B, as well as signs for hotel and shopping, the hotel fittingly named the Interstellar Inn. There's also a sign for the NAT, which stands for the New Atlantis Transit. This sounds like there's going to be some kind of train or other transportation system that we can use to get around the different areas of the city, which is always nice when you're in a hurry. There's also a sign for UC-SEC, which is the nickname for the United Colonies Security and Safety. Now, for those of you who don't know what the United Colonies is, or are wondering why the letters UC seem to be plastered everywhere, the United Colonies is Starfield's largest and most powerful faction. Years before the game takes place, the United Colonies fought in a bloody colony war with the Freestar Collective, another game faction we'll talk more about soon. New Atlantis has been described previously as a melting pot and the future of humanity. In that spirit, there seems to be a large diversity among the NPCs, and we can also confirm that children will be in the game. While New Atlantis is definitely a futuristic city, it also has some very rustic and gritty elements, with all of the buildings looking weathered and vegetation slightly overgrown. They also displayed some UC interiors. This office at some UC location has an interior that appears extremely detailed, and I want to point out the textures and lighting in this image. The detail of the carpet looks so great with those different light sources, so the graphics really do appear to be a solid step forward with Creation Engine 2. We get a scene of the UC making a pitch on joining the faction to stop the Crimson Fleet, and it looks like we get a good shot here of the UC Military Command Center, with some very cool futuristic displays everywhere. The feel of the UC in general is significantly different from the Freestar Collective, and the UC has a lot more of that modern space aesthetic. Speaking of the Freestar Collective, let's talk more about Aquila. Aquila City is the capital city of the Freestar Collective, and it has a walled exterior, keeping it safe from the alien wolf raptors we already know about named the Oshta. Aquila isn't the most glamorous city, with dirt roads and very simple structures, but it does have a certain natural beauty to it, with the rock buildings tying in nicely to the mountainous, rocky landscape. We also get this very Western-sounding guy telling us the Freestar Collective aren't just there to shoot the bad guys, we're peacekeepers. He honestly feels more like a Red Dead Redemption 2 character than someone I'd dream up for a space fantasy game, but that seems to be the theme with the Freestar Collective in general. This Aquila interior shows a little more of that very unmodern vibe that seems to embody the Freestar Collective, with this wooden logo set on a rock wall. On the right hand side, I think we may be seeing the Ashta, the alien wolf raptors mentioned before, which look pretty dang terrifying. They're going to be a lot of fun to fight and hunt. Okay, so on to the next city, Neon. Neon is known as a pleasure city with a thriving corporate-controlled setting, all encased in a gold glass dome. Honestly, this city looks incredible, and I think this is going to be a fan favorite. Neon definitely gives us super strong cyberpunk vibes, with the corporate high-rise life along with the dark street slums, all in a very neon color palette. There appear to be medical centers, spaceport terminals, and hotels available, so there does appear to be a large amount of usable buildings within the city. We also know Neon is a place that will have a psychedelic drug called Aurora available, and it's the only city this space skooma will be legal. Now we don't know what factions will be playable from Neon specifically, but we do know the Ryujin Corporation will have its own questline. Lastly, we get to see the Crimson Fleet, a pirate faction seen throughout the trailer serving as the generic bad guys, so it is cool that you'll be able to play as the bad guys yourself if you want to. This fleet member explains to us that once you join the fleet, you can't quit. The only way out is death. We also get a brief shot of what we might guess is the main command center for the Crimson Fleet. It seems each faction, like in previous Bethesda games, will have a central home base you can visit. We get to see some more armor for the Crimson Fleet here, and the design is pretty cool. I know not everyone is a fan of the NASA punk aesthetic, but I think the realism is a nice touch and will ultimately make the game more immersive. I'm sure modders will have a field day making sleeker armor sets. Now, while we don't know if any of these will be factions per se, I did also want to mention that there are various religious groups within the game. A developer commentary YouTube video Bethesda released mentioned fanatical religious zealots of the House of Varun. Also, during the character creation section, which we'll talk more about in part 4 of my full breakdown series, we see that there are religious traits like Raised Enlightened, Raised Universal, and Serpent's Embrace. We don't know much about what options we'll have for joining these different groups, but I'd guess there will be several religious orders that we'll have the ability to join or battle against in our journeys. One last thing I'll point out is that Bethesda has stated that there are going to be 4 major cities in Starfield, and we've only seen details for 3, New Atlantis, Aquila, and Neon, so there is still one major city we know nothing about. So out of all the cities we've seen, I think Neon is the one I'm most excited for. I just love the aesthetic and can't get over that glass dome. And as for the factions, I don't know what my first playthrough will be, but I know my second is going to be the Crimson Fleet. Let me know in the comments what your favorite city is and what faction you plan on joining when Starfield releases next year. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for part 4 of my full breakdown where I talk about character creation and the RPG elements that will be in Starfield. So that's all for now guys, signing off, this is Squiddyvon, and this is .GameTV.